It's 9 p.m. on Easter Sunday, and we are hopelessly stuck in deep snow in the middle of nowhere. How did we get into this situation? Well, let's go back to that day and see what happened. It was a long Easter weekend, a sunny Sunday, and we thought it was a perfect time to go on our first spring hike. We decided to follow a snowmobile trail into the backcountry and then hike a section of the road on foot. We went for a short hike through the snow-covered woods, breathing in the crisp spring air. We spent some beautiful time near a frozen lake, soaking up the spring sunshine, enjoying the views, and unwinding by a campfire. We grilled steaks right over the fire, roasted marshmallows, and enjoyed the peacefulness of the moment. With that relaxed, content vibe still lingering, we decided it was time to head back home. It was already 6 p.m. and the sun was starting to dip. We packed up and all that was left to do was turn around and drive back the way we came. Simple, right? But as it turned out, that peaceful day by the lake wasn't the end of our adventure. It was just the beginning of the real one. As you might remember, we had been driving along a section of the snowmobile trail that had been groomed during the winter. But to turn around and retrace our road, my husband Artem had to reverse off the packed trail into some softer, untouched snow to give himself enough room for the maneuver.
Це нормально. Я б проїхала ще.
At first, it didn't seem like a problem. The tire sank only slightly, just to the depths of the tread, and everything looked stable. He was positioning the Bronco for the final left turn to complete the turnaround when it happened. Just as Artem was about to straighten out the Bronco and line it up with the trail, the right side of the vehicle suddenly slipped off the packed snow and into the softer, unpacked shoulder. The Bronco started drifting to the right, gradually sinking deeper into the snow. You can actually see the moment when he's trying to keep it straight, but the wheels are pulling to the right. It was clear we'd lost traction on that side. I think the warmer temperatures throughout the day had softened the snow compared to when we first arrived, making the surface much less supportive. Still, we were not too worried at that point. We figured we just needed to ease the Bronco back onto the firmer, groomed part of the trail, and we started working on that. Artem tried to reverse slightly and then gain a bit of momentum to drive forward and pop the Bronco out of the soft snow. But instead of climbing back onto the packed trail, the opposite happened. The vehicle drifted even farther to the right, and the right side sank deeper into the snowbank. The wheels were now digging in, leaving deep ruts behind. At that point, I jumped in to help.
Почекай, не їдь. Не їдь, добре?
I began packing the snow in front of the front right tire, trying to create a more solid surface for the traction. I've had some experience with packing snow for winter trails, so I was actually glad to apply this technique in a real off-road recovery situation.
Так, попробуй вперед, мені здається.
We made another attempt to drive back onto the trail, but it only made things worse. The Bronco slid another 20 centimeters deeper to the right.
Стой!
And that's when we realized the situation had escalated. The undercarriage was now resting on the compacted snow, effectively high centering the vehicle. The tires had lost contact with firm ground and we were officially stuck. The wheels were just spinning in place, kicking up snow, but generating no forward movement. That was the real warning sign. We were not getting out of this as easily as we'd hoped. By then, we had already spent close to 2 hours trying various strategies. So we shifted gears and decided to gather sticks, branches, anything we could find to wedge under the tires in hopes of improving traction and giving the Bronco a solid base to drive out of the snowbank. Unfortunately, the stick trick turned out to be useless.
Поки нічого, ну просто по слизькому прокрутило, походу.
We placed branches under 2 of the tires, hoping they'd give the wheels something to grip. but the wood was damp and slick. The tires just kept spinning on the top of them without catching any real traction.
Задню прокручує. Те ж саме.
So we moved on to plan C, lowering the tire pressure. Artem dropped it from 35 psi to around 20, hoping that the increased surface area would help the tires float better on the snow. But again, nothing. The wheels just turned in place, no progress at all. And just to be fully transparent, we had no shovel, no traction boards, nothing to dig out the packed snow beneath the undercarriage. We were completely unprepared for this kind of recovery. So if you are thinking about dropping a comment to point that out, we totally deserve it. Lesson learned. We gave it one last try using the Bronco's factory jack, hoping to lift the right side and clear the packed snow. But as Artem raised it, the whole vehicle began to shift, too risky to continue. That's when we remembered passing a few cottages by the lake, one with a four-wheeler out front. We walked over, found no one home, but luckily spotted two shovels on the porch. Grateful and a bit guilty, we borrowed them. Our only real chance at digging out. With a 9 p.m. deadline looming to call for help, we hurried back, determined to make one last push. As dusk settled in, we returned to the Bronco with a fresh dose of hope and determination, and finally with the right tools for the job. Once we started digging, it became clear why we hadn't been able to move at all. The entire undercarriage of the vehicle was resting on packed snow. The chassis was fully grounded, with no clearance underneath. There wasn't even a sliver of light between the snow and the vehicle's frame. The tires had nothing to grip because the weight of the Bronco was being supported by the snow itself, not the wheels. Our main task now was to break up and remove the compacted snow beneath the entire length of the vehicle. It was slow, exhausting work, and it took a serious amount of effort and time. But finally, we managed to get enough clearance to try moving again. Our 9 p.m. deadline had passed, but by then I could see real progress. I didn't push to make any calls. I trusted my husband, and I trusted the process. So we kept going. Each time we tried to drive out, it followed 10, 15, or even 20 minutes of intense digging. As you can see in the footage, the snow was nearly half a meter deep, and the front wheel had sunk into a depression that was nearly level with the height of the tire. That's how much snow we were working to clear, just to give our Bronco a fighting chance to get back to the solid ground. We kept at it, working in complete darkness. Some attempts brought us closer to the firm part of the trail, giving us glimmers of hope. Others only caused the Bronco to slide even farther to the right, deepening our frustration. We were soaked to the skin and physically exhausted, but we didn't stop. We kept doing what needed to be done, one step at a time.
А справа не так усе й погано. Да? А тут ти просто в сугроб їхав. Попробуй вперед трошки.
We battled slush and soft snow, inching back and forth, trying to break free. At one point, the front right wheel slammed into a deep snowbank and disappeared completely. The bumper looked like it had taken a hit, with snow jammed tightly underneath, ready to crack or snap it off.
Я чую, що мене стягує, я поворачую, щоб вивернути.
Да, воно стало ще більше сюди.
Ще
Oddly enough, the moments when I was packing snow in front of the tires brought me a bit of comfort. The effort warmed me up just enough to take the edge of my freezing feet, and it gave me a sense of purpose in the chaos. I'm not sure the footage can really show just how deep the snow was or how much effort it took to dig the Bronco out of that mess, but in that moment for us it felt like an enormous task, almost impossible. Finally, after a few more attempts, we noticed that the front wheels had made it into solid packed snow. That was a huge breakthrough. We knew we were close. All we had to do now was level out the left side, so Artem got to work clearing out the snow right down to the ground. Once he exposed firm surface beneath both tires, we had traction and a real chance to finally drive out. I quietly counted on these being the moment, the ones that would finally work.
Отут воно вперлося.
Да.
Походу, там йому ми втоптали нормально, воно нормально йде, а в цим колесом ти вперся. Копай, називається опять.
I lost count of how many times we tried, how many times we circled the Bronco, checking every wheel, how many times we dug out snow, only to have it filled back in. We stopped noticing our soaked gloves, freezing feet, or how tired we were. All that mattered was getting out. We were determined.
Десь в мою сторону кидати. Тому що попадає.
It's hard to explain, but we've been in a situation like this before, when everything feels critical, even dangerous, and there is no guarantee of success. But somewhere deep inside, you still know it's going to be okay. You trust the situation, stay calm, and just keep doing the work.
Стой!
The breakthrough will come at the right moment, if you are ready for it. And that's exactly what happened. We didn't panic, we just stayed focused and kept pushing forward. And finally, the Bronco climbed out of the deep snow pocket. We were free. I let out a long breath I didn't even realize I'd been holding. It was over. We hugged in relief and took one last look at what now felt like a snow-covered battlefield. Then we packed up the shovels and slowly made our way back to the cottage we had borrowed them from. On the way down, I even managed to laugh a little, sliding along the snow with the shovels in hand, feeling light after such a heavy evening. We are deeply grateful to the kind strangers who left those shovels out. We made a promise to ourselves to return in the summer, leave a pack of beer and a little thank you note on their porch. Now all that was left was just a careful ride back to solid ground. I could squeeze water out of my socks and my feet were frozen, but none of that matters anymore. We finally made it home, just before midnight. This was definitely not the adventure we had planned. It simply happened, but it reminded me of something important. We are a strong team, and when we trust each other, we can handle just about anything. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on the next adventure, hopefully one a little less dramatic. You're welcome to subscribe to the channel and drop a comment with advice or whatever you think about this video. See you on the trail.
Cruising down the highway, windows down low. Sunset paints the sky in a fiery glow.